This is Headline News, live from Atlanta with Gordon Graham.
Good morning. Hundreds of prisoners from the Bosnian War are finally returning to their homes. In keeping with the peace accord, Bosnian, Croats, Serbs, and Muslims are scheduled to swap about 900 soldiers today and tomorrow. Red Cross officials are concerned about one possible snag. The Muslim-led Bosnian government has said it may link the release to an alleged massacre by the Serbs at Srebrenica. As another part of the agreement, Bosnian, Serb, and Croat troops withdrew yesterday from frontline positions in central and northeastern Bosnia. Their pullout beat the deadline by 5 days. 6 Swedish NATO peacekeepers are recovering from injuries caused by a landmine explosion yesterday. 4 of the soldiers were hurt seriously, but none of the injuries are apparently life-threatening. When NATO peacekeepers leave the region, Bosnian Muslims may be better prepared to defend themselves in the future. The New York Times reports the Bosnian government has accepted a plan to hire retired U.S. officers to teach combat technique to their army. Defense Secretary William Perry told the Times training will begin within the next 2 months. The Senate made the training of Bosnian government forces a condition of its endorsement of the NATO mission. Russian troops are using force to try and free several dozen hostages being held by separatist Chechen rebels. They launched an all-out attack about 5 hours ago, escalating a 6-day standoff after negotiations collapsed. At least one person is reported dead, but many casualties, including among the hostages, are feared. Government spokesman says Russia's security chief ordered the attack on the rebels after they began killing some of the hostages, but there was no independent confirmation of that. CNN's Eileen O'Connor, who's on the scene, reports the negotiations never had much of a chance of success.
Well, they could have if the rebels had, in fact, agreed to take the hostage, to release the hostages, because they knew where all the hostages were, and presumably through a lot of the surveillance, the Russians had a pretty good idea. But you know, these are tiny little villages with a lot of fences. The way they build them around here, there are fences around buildings with inner courtyards and inner barns and a lot of small, tiny passages. There's usually a lot of grain storage spaces beneath the floors of these buildings, basements that go down, and it's very easy to hide people and to hide the rebels. And so this was always going to be a much more difficult military target to take. Once they let the rebels take those hostages off the buses.
The number of rebel fighters is estimated between 150 and 250. Tomorrow marks the 5th anniversary of the start of the Gulf War, and former President George Bush is using the occasion to reflect on the events. He says he made a mistake in thinking that Iraqi President Saddam Hussein would fall from power. In an interview to be broadcast on PBS Tuesday, Bush says he should have sought to have Saddam surrender in person.
Everybody felt that Saddam Hussein could not stay in office, certainly stay in office as long as he stayed in office. And I miscalculated. I thought he'd be gone, but I wasn't alone. The people in the Arab world felt, you know, with unanimity that he would be out of there. I think all observers felt that. He will be. At some point, he will be.
Bush also called Saddam wacko and said he wouldn't have minded if the Iraqi leader had been killed during the war. Pentagon officials say weekend talks with North Korea in Hawaii failed to resolve anything about the recovery of the remains of Americans missing from the Korean War. But they say it's significant the talks took place at all. The U.S. and North Korea do not have diplomatic ties. More than 8,100 U.S. servicemen are still unaccounted for from the war. That's nearly 4 times the number missing from the Vietnam War. The corruption trial of former South Korean President Roh Tae-woo resumed today. Analysts expected a vigorous defense, but Song Ji-ae reports that that's not what happened.
South Korea's former President Roh Tae-woo started his second day in court by declining to take the stand on his own behalf. In a statement read by Mr. Roh's lawyers, former president said he would offer no excuses and would accept any punishment. The former president denied he gave favors for the money he received from South Korean businessmen. Mr. Roh is charged with receiving $365 million in bribes in return for major government contracts. Mr. No arrived at court under tight security, wearing a blue prison uniform. TV cameras were barred from the court proceedings. Citizens groups gathered outside the courtroom, some standing in line overnight in the winter cold to get into the trial, while others came to express their opinion on what the outcome should be. We are a country ruled by law, says this woman. She says she wants to see Mr. No tried fairly and get the maximum penalty for the crime he committed. If convicted, Mr. No could get 10 years to life. Standing trial with the former president were 14 businessmen and former aides who were charged with bribery or helping Mr. No raise the slush fund. Major business figures such as Lee Gon-hee, chairman of the Samsung Group, and Kim Woo-jung of the Daewoo Group, argued that the money was not for any specific favors, and that if convicted, their businesses would suffer both in the domestic and international markets. The prosecutors are said to be trying to speed up the process of this trial as much as possible, but it won't do much good for Mr. No, whose trials have just begun. Mr. No is facing separate charges with another ex-president, Chun Doo-hwan, for his role in a 1979 military coup and a bloody crackdown of a civilian uprising in the city of Gwangju the following year. Analysts expect sentencing for both ex-presidents in the latter half of this year, after all the trial proceedings have been completed. Sun Ji-ae, CNN, Seoul.
2 astronauts are getting some training in construction techniques nearly 200 miles above the Earth. Leroy Chow and Daniel Barry are making a 6.5-hour spacewalk in Space Shuttle Endeavour's open cargo bay. They're practicing with tools and equipment NASA hopes to use in building an international space station in the next few years. It's the first spacewalk for both astronauts. Wednesday, Chow will step back out into space with another first-timer, Wally Scott. President Clinton plans to visit Atlanta today to celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. The president is scheduled to speak at the Ebenezer Baptist Church, where the slain civil rights leader preached. Later, he'll lay a wreath at King's gravesite. The Reverend Jesse Jackson is also in Atlanta for the commemoration. Jackson was King's friend and was with him the day he was killed. The marking of the King holiday got underway early in Charlotte, North Carolina, where about 150 people held a candlelight vigil in honor of murdered young people. They say it's a way to follow King's example of nonviolence. Supporters of First Lady Hillary Rodham Clinton call it a witch hunt. Senate Whitewater investigators now say they want to review White House electronic mail as part of their probe. Republicans suggest the President and Mrs. Clinton have been misrepresenting their roles in the failed Whitewater land deal and the collapse of an Arkansas savings and loan. And they say many questions remain unanswered.
I believe that the discovery that there were copies of some of these files may have had something to do with the discovery of the files. We have contradictory evidence before the committee, flat contradictory statements. Mr. O'Neill, the Secret Service agent, for example, saying he saw Maggie Williams carry files out of Vince Foster's office.
First Lady's Chief of Staff.
Yeah, the First Lady's Chief of Staff. Her flat statement that she didn't do it. And then Mr. Massey raised the issue about files when he said if he had known that some of the files he turned over to Vince Foster were in fact going to end up in Webb Hubbell's basement, he wouldn't have given them to him.
Next call.
Republicans say they want to gather more information before deciding whether to subpoena Mrs. Clinton to testify before the Whitewater Committee. The political scene is looking muddy. The slinging has begun. Republican presidential hopeful Steve Forbes took a hit from Fortune magazine. The publication attacks Forbes magazine, accusing its publisher of sparing big advertisers from tough criticism. Fortune alleges companies like General Motors and Ford have been given preferential treatment. The New York Times says Forbes called the accusation untrue. Republican presidential frontrunner Bob Dole is downplaying a magazine article that raises questions about his wife's finances. The New Yorker reports that in 1986, David Owen, an associate, invested Elizabeth Dole's money in a corporation that soon afterward reportedly reaped a $500 million profit due to legislation Senator Dole helped push through Congress. The Doles severed relations with Owen in 1988. He recently completed a 1-year prison sentence for tax fraud and was interviewed for the New Yorker article. Dole's campaign says the allegations in the article are nothing new and have been proven untrue before. Some Republican presidential candidates are shifting their attention to New Hampshire following Saturday's debate in Iowa. Gene Randall has the story.
ROTC 1956. Right? That's the baby. Watch it.
Patrick Buchanan was back in New Hampshire Sunday with a Boston Globe poll showing him third among Republicans and independents here. But at 11%, he is far behind the frontrunner, Senator Bob Dole. He also trails Free Spending magazine publisher Steve Forbes by 6 points. Seeing he is a victim of political crowding, Buchanan is charging Forbes with a kind of label fraud.
Forbes is pro-abortion, against the ballot budget. He believes we need more immigration into America. And so I don't think he's an authentic conservative. I think he's a corporate conservative.
Well, come on in. Good to see you.
Senator Phil Gramm, at 5% in the poll, voices what must be a baseline wish for many in the Republican field.
Obviously, Steve Forbes has now spent over $12 million. No person has ever run and spent that kind of money on media. In the end, is it going to be a decisive factor? I don't think so.
Maybe not, but even the Dole campaign has begun paying attention to Forbes, judging him now to be the major competition. The attack on Forbes is showing up in Dole's TV campaign.
The more you learn about Steve Forbes, the more questions you have.
And in Saturday's Iowa presidential debate, Forbes was a favorite target for anyone who would like someday soon to claim he is Bob Dole's prime opponent. Look for the pace of the firing at Steve Forbes to pick up in the days ahead. Focal point, his flat tax. Expect to hear variations of this.
The Forbes tax claim is a truly nutty idea.
Asked his view of the Iowa debate, a Buchanan aide here in New Hampshire told us it was the recognition by the rest of the GOP field that the Forbes candidacy is for real. Translation, he is a clear and present political danger to any Republican trying to catch Bob Dole. Gene Randall, CNN, Manchester, New Hampshire.
The Green Bay Packers and a Texas man are both losers in Dallas. Sam Young lost his job at a Dallas grocery store after sporting a Packers jersey at work. He says the store told workers to wear Dallas Cowboy shirts or their regular uniforms. But he says he hates the Cowboys so much he wore the Packers shirt instead and refused to take it off. So the management fired him. Consumer News is next.
More snow in the upper Midwest Monday, rain and snow in the Northwest, still clear across most of the South, save for some rain in the Gulf.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
A friend of mine told me, try America Online. I said, why? I've got a computer. He said, try it. You'll see. It's easy. I called. They sent me a free America Online startup kit and gave me 10 free hours to look around. I'll admit I was nervous, but it's all point and click. I can do that. It's simple. Every time you sign on, welcome, it tells you if you've got mail. You've got mail. Want to send some email? Type the message, click here, and it's done. I like this. With one click, I can browse all kinds of great features on America Online. Surflink, Murder Mystery Online, Compton's Living Encyclopedia, whatever grabs my attention. I've gotten help with my golf swing, I've planned my next vacation, even bought flowers for my mother. Online. I love magazines, but I can't subscribe to them all. Or can I? America Online has over 100 newspapers and magazines. Everything from Business Week Online to Weekly World News, Atlantic Monthly to Cycle World. And I can browse them all. Keeping track of investments used to be tricky for me, but with America Online, it's a breeze. I pick a stock here, add it to my portfolio. I even get stock price updates every 15 minutes. Okay, I'll admit it. Sometimes my kids stump me with homework questions. But here's the answer. We use the teacher pager. It has teachers online to answer questions. Let me tell you, it comes in handy late Sunday nights. With America Online, you can point and click your way across the internet. And their web browser makes it easy to explore the World Wide Web. I'm always amazed by how many new features keep getting added. Just look. Of course, there's only one way to really experience it. Firsthand, on your own, up close and personal. Call the toll-free number and you'll receive your free startup kit and 10 free hours to look around. It's worth a try. You'll see.
To try America Online free, call 1-800-218-1717. You'll receive your free America Online Startup Kit and 10 free hours your first month. There's no obligation. Call now. Startup Kit and 10 free hours your first month. There's no obligation. Call now.
Layoffs in the aerospace industry are on the rise, forcing many workers to make some tough adjustments. Jennifer Arthur has details.
The pink slips began flying in 1989. At least 150,000 aerospace workers were laid off in California alone. Headlines were staggering. Across America, the figure was about 400,000. Bob Jackson worked for 30 years as an engineer. He was laid off twice when 2 separate plants shut down in the early 90s. He's been unemployed ever since.
It makes you feel real bad. There's nothing you can do. I'm willing to move. I'm willing to go any place.
While Jackson continues to look for work, he watches even more of his former colleagues get laid off.
Probably 1 out of 3 California aerospace workers is no longer in the industry.
And what about the industry itself?
The industry is poised to prosper. A shrinking industry generates a lot more profits than a growing industry.
Hopefully the idea is that you have a stronger company moving forward so that there is a better job security for those who remain.
Consolidations are not expected to slow down over the next 2 years. Most recently, Northrop Grumman agreed to buy Westinghouse Defense Operations. Lockheed Martin has announced it's buying most of Loral Corporation, a leading maker of computers, defense, and aerospace electronics.
And so there's now a bigger line looking for the few jobs that do exist.
But some laid-off workers have created their own jobs. Anthony Materna was laid off from TRW Space and Defense Corporation after 15 years of service. Once out, Materna secured a grant, patented computer integration technology, and he hired 6 other former TRW workers.
In most cases, the smaller companies have a faster technology development than the large companies because they work harder at lower cost.
In the future, the defense industry will move even more toward upgrading older planes and weaponry and using newer technology. Predictions are that business will be steady, but the old days of boom and bust in the defense industry are perhaps gone forever. Jennifer Arthur, CNN, Manhattan Beach, California.
The Steelers and the Cowboys meet again. Headline Sports is next.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
Are you ready for some rubber-burning, gear-slamming, axle-smashing, rolling-over, truck-burning, high-flying, hard-driving traction action? How that happened makes you wonder. Northwest Chevy Dealers presents the Napa Auto Parts Motor Spectacular in association with Budweiser. Tacoma Dome, January 19th, 20th, and 21st. Smokecraft Monster Truck Challenge, featuring Bigfoot and many more. Demo Derby, motocross, rollovers, and robots. Kids get a free Monster Truck Challenge souvenir photo. Kids half price with Burger King coupons. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
Monday, Brooke's jealousy of Allison is pushing her over the edge.
Why did you trash Allison's apartment?
Stop it! All you care about is her. It's always about her.
And Sydney will do anything to get rid of her sister.
You can't just leave me here.
But how far is she willing to go? A brand new Melrose Place. Then, Ned's hot new girlfriend just can't get enough.
She's bent me in directions that would make Gumby scream.
Wings Farrah Ford guest stars on a brand new Ned and Stacy, followed by Partners Monday.
When the changelings reach Earth,
my duty is to protect the Federation.
That's what we're trying to do. Suspicion is everywhere.
With those troops in place, Admiral Layton controls Earth.
And war is imminent. But the real threat...
You think that one Starfleet ship is going to fire on another?
...is closer to home.
They've been told everyone on the Defiant has been replaced by shapeshifters.
On an all-new episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Monday at 10 on Q13 Fox. Weeknights on Q13.
Stay right where you are!
Between right and wrong stands a thin blue line.
Hands up, let me see the hands!
At 11:30, it's the original and still the best.
An officer down behind Circus Circus.
It's Cops. Then at midnight, when crime happens in Los Angeles, it's time to call in the LAPD.
It's our job to take him down if he comes out the front.
The only way to get closer to the action is to wear a badge. Cops and LAPD, weeknights on Q13.
I'm Darren Sutton, Headline Sports.
The Cowboys and Steelers have a date on January 28th at Super Bowl 30. This is the third meeting in the big game between the two teams. Pittsburgh won both Super Bowl 10 and 13. In the AFC, it was a hard-fought game that brought tears to the eyes of the victors. The Steelers are going to Super Bowl 30 after a 20-20.
We're just going to do our job and let our deeds speak for themselves. And like I said, we got one more game to go. And we're not going to become satisfied till we finish this thing off.
You know, I tip my hat. It really hasn't settled in right now because I think next week it'll really settle in that, you know, this team's going to the Super Bowl and we're going to represent the AFC, and that's a great honor.
Dallas is making their third big game appearance in 4 years after they stopped the Packers 38-27. Emmitt Smith stole the show. Now there's a surprise. The all-world back rushed for 150 yards on 35 carries. He had 3 TD runs. This 16-yarder was the final of the game, and it iced things. 2 of the other big guns came through also. Troy Aikman passed for 255 yards and hooked up with Michael Irvin for 2 touchdowns. Irvin had 100 receiving yards. The league's MVP, Brett Favre, tossed 3 touchdowns in a losing effort.
I'm very proud of this team. I'm very proud of the progress that we made. I'm proud of the players on this team. I'm proud of Brett. And we got a lot to build on during this offseason.
On the NBA hardwood, the Suns couldn't like their home cooking as they lost their 5th straight at the house, 89-74 to the Cavaliers. Former Sun Dan Marley did the damage as he poured in 20. College basketball, it was a scary Sunday for top-ranked UMass. Prior to their 65-52 win over St. Bonaventure, star center Marcus Camby collapsed. He spent Sunday night in a hospital and is alert and knows where he is. In other scores, North Carolina ripped Clemson, Memphis won in overtime, Syracuse slipped by Rutgers, USC knocked off Stanford. On the ice, New Jersey topped Dallas, Anaheim slid by Winnipeg. The Rangers and St. Louis tied things up, and Mike Keenan's return to Madison Square Garden. Chicago rolled, Calgary and Colorado tied things up. And Phil Mickelson won the Nortel Open. I'm Darren Sutton, Headline Sports.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.
Last year, nearly 8 million people had their lives turned upside down by unemployment. Hate to say it, but that's life. We're the first company that allows unemployed clients greater access to their annuity without a penalty. And that can help a lot until things get straightened out. That's New York Life, the company you keep. When it comes to travel, there are 2 companies who can cover the world like nobody else. So whether you're up north or down south, far to the east or out west, now there's a new credit card that turns whatever you buy into free travel. Delta Airlines in the sky, American Express on the ground, and a way to earn more Sky Miles faster. The new Delta Sky Miles credit card from American Express.
A California woman apparently knows the secret of longevity. Lena McLaughlin has reached her 110th birthday, possibly making her the oldest living person in Northern California. She lived through 20 U.S. presidencies, starting with the Cleveland administration. Relatives say she still goes shopping, works in her garden, and reads the newspaper cover to cover. In Austin, Texas, many fans hoping to get Bruce Springsteen concert tickets are living with disappointment. About 100 homeless people hired by ticket agencies lined up over the weekend and bought most of the $30 tickets. Shortly after, they were being resold for as much as $400. One agency owner says he hires the homeless because they're flexible and adds free enterprise is what America is all about. Italian fashion designer Versace is turning to another famous face for an ad campaign. Rocker John Bon Jovi will appear in a series of ads, including shots of him in concert and in cowboy designs. Other celebrity models who have appeared in Versace ads include Elton John, Sylvester Stallone, and Madonna. Ricki Lake says she's uncomfortable playing a pretty girl. The actress and talk show host tells Entertainment Weekly she was terrified playing the romantic lead in her upcoming film, Mrs. Winterbourne, because she found it hard accepting herself as attractive. Lake weighed 250 pounds in her first movie, Hairspray, 9 years ago. She's now a more trim size 8. She says playing an insecure, ugly girl is still much easier for her. You've heard of couples getting married on ski slopes, in hot air balloons, and even underwater, but how about in a public restroom? Jilly Carter has that story.
It was certainly a wedding to remember. If not for the 8 couples sharing the day, then certainly for the decor. $1 million surroundings in a building purpose-built. Not exactly to formal wedding standards, but no one seemed to mind. The surroundings weren't going to stop the happy newlyweds from enjoying the formalities. And it was all in a good cause. This wasn't exactly the porcelain the brides had asked for as wedding gifts. But as they left the hallowed halls, they knew they'd done their bit. You see, it's part of a public toilet publicity program aimed at challenging the traditional Chinese aversion to public conveniences. While the couples enjoyed their special day, they were showing people that bathrooms are an indispensable part of people's lives. Or at least that's what the toilet owners say. And anyway, they were trying to set a world record for a mass bathroom wedding. One that hopefully won't be attempted again for a while. But it does beg the question, what's wrong with tying the knot in that beautiful park outside?
Coming up in the next half hour, the latest on the hostage crisis in southern Russia. Big change in parking meters. And Sally Field takes a shot at her latest role. That and more in 2 minutes. We hope you'll stay with us. We leave you this half hour with a view from above. Earth as seen from the shuttle Endeavour. I'm Gordon Graham, and this is Headline News.
This is Headline News, a CNN network.